Christopher, I'm so glad we get to talk about this world again. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I had such an experience of the night watching the film.
Oh, wow, thank you.
I didn't realise how audible I was being. I was moving backwards and forwards in my seat. I felt like I hadn't taken a breath for a good 45 minutes. It was just amazing. But the emotion is the thing that encourages you to take a breath. And that's what's so great about these films, is the way that you combine, these huge, big, intense, exciting action sequences, but then the emotion is always, and it's got to be at the heart of it, and the core of it.
Yes.
So bravo.
Thank you.
Music then.
Yes.
We didn't get to talk about the last film, but two previously with you and Lorne. Let's start with new composers.
Yes.
With Max and Alfie. And just on Alfie, I was blown away by a little short film that he worked on called Marion. That was about it's a French bullfighter, female bullfighter, by these two young guys. It was nominated for a BAFTA short.
Yeah.
And he did the music on that, and I only put the two together when I was doing research for this. It's incredible.
Oh, I've got to see it.
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. Tell me a little bit about Max and Alfie and how they came into the picture, I guess, first of all, and given the trust to write a phenomenal score for this film.
So Max and Alfie had been working in the background on other projects under Lorne.
Yeah.
And we knew that this was a very long process and a very, very, very intense one. So we needed people who could be dedicated to it and nothing else the entire time for a very, very long period of time.
Yeah.
And Lorne is an extraordinarily busy guy now. Lorne has ascended and is an industry unto himself.
Yeah.
And so we knew it was time to bring in somebody who could just be devoted to this movie. And Randy Spendlove at Paramount Pictures introduced us. I listened to a little bit of their music, and Cecile Tornasac, our music supervisor and the producer of the score, knew them and endorsed them, said they're ready. And they came in, and then they were drinking from the fire hose from day one. It was very, very, very intense.
What an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
I love that idea of Cecile going, they're ready.
Yeah.
It's great.
And it's great. And it's also, Cecile is someone who's enormously unsung. We've been working with Cecile for a very long time. She worked on Fallout, Top Gun. She worked on Dead Reckoning. And she really is she's an extraordinary producer and just an absolute musical genius. Very, very brilliant. But also the most dedicated, hardworking member of the team. She really... there were days when Cecile would come in and she would have the flu, and I would say, Cecile, go home. And she's like, no. And she would lock herself in this little room and be working constantly. She's absolutely devoted to the craft and a real asset to the movie.
What was the conversation then, the initial conversation with them both, in terms of how did they start? What do you give them to start this project?
Free reign. We give them all the creative space and say, okay, well, tell us what you think.
Yeah.
Bring us your ideas. And what Max and Alfie would do is they would write suites of music. There was nothing to picture. There was nothing particularly devoted to a specific sequence.
Yeah.
They were really just playing with the theme and playing with different musical ideas. And Eddie and I, as you know, we don't cut with temp score.
Yeah.
Temp is very, very deceptive.
Yeah.
It convinces you that scenes are working when they're not. It convinces you that scenes are the correct length when they're not. It's a crutch. And what happens is you fall in love with the temp music, and then suddenly you can't ever get away from it. Once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And it's very hard to emotionally break from it. So Eddie and I cut dry. We don't have any music, and we're very, very fixated on getting a scene rhythmically correct without any music, and then seeing how music enhances it rather than fixes it.
Yeah.
So we started dropping their suites on different scenes in the movie, and part of that process is that the movie develops its own internal rhythm. Mm-hmm. So a piece of music that might work in one scene, you discover starts working in several scenes and it starts hitting all of the same beats. And Max and Alfie, who were new to this process, were stunned by what they saw as wizardry, because I would just say, take that music and put it on this, take it and put it in. And there were times when they would write something, and I would say, good idea, doesn't really work, but watch what happens if we slide that music 15 seconds earlier. Or there were times when they'd be trying to write music to a specific scene, and I'd say, guys, you already wrote it. And we would go to a much later in the movie and bring it forward. Similar to the experience I had with Hans on Top Gun Maverick, similar to the experience I've had with Lorne and with Joe Kramer, where pieces of music that worked in one place worked in others and became thematic without ever intentionally being that way.
Yeah.
And then there's a piece of music towards the end of the movie where there's the scene in Trafalgar Square towards the end of the film. And we shot that, all of that, the majority of that we shot in Trafalgar Square the same day we did the daytime. There's two scenes in Trafalgar Square. We shot them all in one day.
The film in a way, yeah.
The bookend of the movie. We shot all of that in one day on a split. So you started in the afternoon and finished very late at night. So you shot some daytime, some nighttime.
Yeah.
That's all the same background. They're just wearing different clothing. And contrary to what people might think, these movies are shot with a great deal of economy in mind. And they're in many ways, a lot of the scenes are indistinguishable from an independent film, just at a different scale. And none of it was working. Eddie and I edited it together without any music. We were very frustrated by it. I was thinking we were going to have to go back and reshoot it or write a different ending. And then Eddie took a suite that Max and Alfie had written and dropped it on this and started cutting it to the music. And it was the first time in the years that we've been working together that Eddie and I ever did that. Where we started, I said, just follow the beats of the score. And it necessitated some very unusual cuts that we never would have made, deeper cuts than we would have made, because we were thinking about continuity and clarity and geography and everything we get obsessed with action that makes the action coherent. And it became very, very emotional, and it worked very, very effectively. And the last piece of the puzzle was Tom came in to watch it.
Yeah.
Or actually, I brought it to Tom. And that was originally not the end of the movie. There was a coda. There was a little postscript. And we were getting ready to shoot it. It was coming up very suddenly. And we knew roughly what it was, but we had not figured it out yet. And I think it was it was middle of the week. It was a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and we were going to shoot this coda on Saturday. And I came to Tom with this assembly of the ending of the movie, and I said, normally I would want you to see the whole movie before you watch this ending, but just watch this and see if you feel what I feel. And we were in his trailer. We were in between takes. We're in a tiny little trailer. And there were a couple of other people from the movie there. His hair and makeup were in there, and a couple other people. And we sat down and watched it, and Tom said, that's the end of the movie. You can cancel Saturday. We don't need to shoot it. And we scrapped this coda. We knew probably a year before the film was finished what the end of the movie was. And it gave us this pole star to shoot towards. And when we then assembled the movie, Tom watched it again, and he said, it's great. It needs the mission theme. It just needs to, the mission theme needs to be in there.
Yeah.
And Max and Alfie brought the mission theme in, and he watched it again, and he said, just bring it in a little earlier. And I kept thinking, I don't know how that's going to work. And sure enough, it did. And it adds an element of wit to it. There's an emotion to it, but Tom has a very good sense of when that emotion is too much. And it was very important to him that the emotionality that was carrying you through to the end of the movie, you then, it's leave them feeling this emotion, not that emotion. And that's how that came together.
Wow.
It really was a team effort. It was everybody working together, and that ending is something that Tom and I have talked about on every Mission Impossible we've done together, wanting that concept,
Okay.
to the feeling you have and how everyone in the scene is, well, without giving too much away,
Yeah, I know.
where they are and what they're looking at.
Yeah.
We wanted that to be the ending of every mission we've done and could never quite get there. We could never make it work. And then lo and behold, there we were. And I said, we did it. There's the ending. By not trying to make it happen, it happened organically. And it's one of the moments of which I'm most proud in the movie.
Wow. Well, that ending you didn't get to shoot can take you into the next film. It's fine.
Yeah. Oh my God.
The next 6.
Yes.
It's so true because that scene, and I'm really conscious about, I don't want to have any spoilers in this chat because
Sure.
the experience for the audience is so important.
Yes.
But it's a silent movie. That last scene is a silent movie. There's
Yes.
no dialogue.
Yes.
But the performances from your cast, Hayley in particular, Hayley and Tom, that interaction is exceptional. And the tone of that is so clever.
Interesting you say that, because when we were shooting this scene,
Yeah.
we had not shot a great deal of Tom and Haley's relationship. And one of the real struggles of this film is what's the tension in the relationship?
Yeah.
There has to be some tension. There has to be some opposing point of view. We knew that Grace could not just be blindly following Ethan. She
Yeah.
had to have her own perspective. We didn't know what it was, and we didn't know how to do it in a way where when somebody is trying to save the world, what could your conflict possibly be that wouldn't make me should say, he's trying to save the world. And of course, there is that scene where they discuss
Yeah.
how should we handle
Yeah.
this that didn't exist.
Wow.
So Tom and Haley were playing different ideas with that behavior.
Yeah.
And when I cut it together, I looked to Eddie and said, they've already talked about this. They've had this conversation.
Wow.
And that's how we ended up shooting that scene. It was informed by their improvised behavior at the end of the movie. They did that not knowing what their relationship even was. They were giving me options, and the best parts of that performance came together to inform what their whole relationship was. So when you watch their relationship in the movie, it was shot in reverse order. We started with how their relationship ended,
Yeah.
and that informed how their relationship began. And in fact, Haley's first scene in the movie, we shot less than 2 months ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's really refreshing, the relationship. It's really refreshing,
Yes.
the equal pegging.
Yes.
And how and tonality of it, I love kind of things. It really, there's some real comedy moments in there, and
Yes.
it's just really joyful to watch. I almost feel like Grace has almost taken on the kind of Benji kind of comedy side in a way.
Yes.
Because Benji's been given a bit more authority, so he's got
Yes.
to take himself a bit more seriously.
Yes.
And I just thought it was really beautiful to watch, and Hayley was
I'm
phenomenal.
glad you see that. It's, first of all, Simon is such a gifted dramatic actor.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to pigeonhole him as the comic relief.
Yeah.
But so much of what makes Benji funny is how human and how vulnerable Benji can be. And when you give Simon those dramatic moments, when you give Ving those dramatic moments,
Yeah.
when you let the two tech guys out of the van and actually become people with feelings who care about Ethan, there's real gold there. And Haley has remarkable comedic timing, remarkable emotional energy, and such incredible subtlety. And one of the things I'm so proud of all the actors in this movie, they all have incredibly subtle, non-verbal moments in the movie
Yeah.
that you could have played much bigger and gotten away with. And there are microscopic reactions, acknowledgments to one another in the story that you feel quite profoundly, and that's a testament to them.
My advice for everyone once they've seen Final Reckoning is to go back and start at 1 and watch back through again, because I said last night that this film is kind of like the most delicious meal where all the ingredients are,
Yeah.
is parts of the previous films or nods to the previous films. And I did that, and going back to watch one, and one starts with that camaraderie and that importance of that team and that relationship.
Yes. And the history.
And the history of it. And so it's kind of like, it was amazing to go back and go, oh my God, there it is. It was there
Yes.
in the first scene in the first film.
Yes.
That kind
Without, and this was the big thing, never ask the audience to leave the movie. It was very important to us that the last film stand completely on its own.
Yeah.
That you never have to have seen a Mission Impossible to watch this movie. And that if it inspires you to go back and watch them, knowing where now the story resolves from Mission 1 and Rolf Saxon in the first movie, the journey that the knife takes throughout the entire story,
Yes.
the rabbit's foot in Mission 3, and how all of those elements, Shea Wiggum's character and how he fits into the story. Something we really debated.
Yeah.
Really, really debated. That reveal of what the relationship was.
Yeah.
Was something that it spoke to something that left an itch that people couldn't scratch, but was it a bridge too far? And the first time we tested the movie, we tested it without that scene. And and then we tested it with the scene, and you realized, okay, we're doing the right thing. This definitely belongs.
The opening, in terms of musically, it sets a tone. It's kind of, and the rhythm, particularly, of the opening of this is brilliant. That must be what's the kind of journey to working out what that's going to be and how big it's going to be or how small it's going to be?
So I'm so glad you asked that question. When we were doing Fallout, and Lorne had a piece which we called Love's Reduced. It's this very emotional. There's always a piece of music that represents Ethan's inner emotions. Not by demand, but sort of by result, as a result of the process. And Love's Reduced was that for Fallout. And it's a piece of music that's playing over Ethan and Ilsa in the garden. It's a piece that's playing over where Ethan's imagining killing all the police officers in order to get to Lane. And we originally had that playing over the title cards at the beginning of the movie. And it was very effective leading into Ethan's dream of his wedding with Julia. And we were getting notes in the first test screening that the beginning of the movie was kind of long. And I kept saying, well, where is it long? Where are they saying that it's long? And of course, I'm brutal. So I just said, well, we can cut out the hospital scene. We can cut out this scene. We can cut out that scene. And they kept saying, no, it's this, it's earlier. I said, well, there's nothing earlier except the first 30 seconds of the movie. And I realized Love's Reduced was putting you to sleep before the movie even started. And so we introduced drums. And if you go back and watch Mission 1, Brian De Palma does the very same thing over at the beginning of the movie. He starts with drums that take you into it. And so the lesson we took from that is you're telling the audience in the first 30 seconds of the movie, this is the kind of movie. This movie is rock and roll, and we're signing a contract with you from the first instant that you're hearing those drums. And it became something we did on Fallout. We did it again on Dead Reckoning, and of course Lorne did it with bongos. And I said to Max and Alfie, I was like, try something else. Try getting away from bongos and try something different. And they took the drums from Africa that they were using, the Burundi drummers. And it's just has a life all its own. It's this incredible language. And it was only very late that we introduced the mission theme. It was originally just drums over those cards.
Oh, wow.
And you'll notice about halfway through, the mission melody starts to sneak in.
Yeah.
That's Eddie Hamilton. Eddie is always trying, he's pushing me to inject the mission theme wherever it can go. And that's always him saying, you're getting your money's worth. That's where this is what I came for.
Yeah, but it's clever because it's the timing. We all think the mission theme is the same, dun 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 dun, but the timing, because of the rhythm of the drums, is different.
Yes.
So you immediately are like, ooh, it's so, it really kind of, it's a reflex almost, the way that you react to
Absolutely.
it.
It's why music is, to me, and I'm saying this as somebody who started out as a writer, music is so much more important than dialogue. That dialogue is, to me, over the course of making these movies for more than 10 years,
Yeah.
dialogue is a necessary evil. Dialogue in these movies is almost entirely devoted to plot. And there are a few actors in this movie who have very little dialogue throughout the entire film. Pom Klementieff being one, Lucy Tulagargic being another. And Lucy came to me several times during the movie and said, I feel like I'm doing nothing, and I have no dialogue, and I'm not saying anything. And I said,
Wow.
Lucy, you have no idea how much power you have.
Yeah.
And listen to the dialogue and ask yourself, do I really want to be responsible for that? Listen to poor Simon Pegg, who delivers all the tech exposition and is explaining the plot when Ethan's not.
Yeah.
And music is really the emotional heartbeat for me. I don't really count on dialogue to express any of that. And I felt more liberated in this movie than in previous ones, because you see, when you watch this film, how much is communicated between characters in glances and in reflexes,
Yeah.
in their common reactions to something they're hearing off screen. So much of it is in the behavior and the juxtaposition or the composition of those characters that you don't need it. You just didn't need it.
Yeah. And we've got the plane behind you, and those two jaw-dropping moments. I mean, there's a lot of jaw-dropping moments in the film, but the two big set pieces, one involves a submarine and the other these two beautiful planes.
Yes.
How do you choreograph the journey for the audience, in terms of, because I was lucky enough to watch these beautiful little vignettes of the making of, and a very small introduction to how these, the preparation and the building and the invention that goes into, not to mention Tom's preparation for that and everybody's preparation for that. But in terms of whilst you're shooting it, and then once you're kind of crafting it with Eddie and all that kind of stuff in the edit suite, but then the music on top of that, that's a lot of different journeys to get to how we need to feel, how you want us to feel as an audience whilst we're experiencing that.
Well, and when we're making these sequences, you become so inured to it that as you're cutting them together, you're thinking, I'm not feeling anything. I'm just so numb to it. And periodically people would come into the editing room to watch what we were doing, and you would look over at them and you'd just see them like this. And I thought, really? This works? And they were like, I can't breathe watching this sequence. Really? Because I'm just worn out. I'm so tired. And we knew music. Tom is a very good description of it. And I have my own thing, which is I don't want. I say to Max and Alfie all the time, they'll be playing music for me, and I said, this music tells me the filmmaker has no confidence in the sequence.
Okay.
Like that the music is saying, no, really, this is a big deal. And there are times when I say the music is telling me what to feel rather than making me feel it. And Tom's summarization of music is, it tells you where to put your feelings.
Interesting.
Different from telling you what to feel.
Yeah.
And which is the kind of thing when you say it to somebody who does not work in film and is not, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
But as somebody who understands music inherently, exactly what he's saying when he says that. It's the difference between manipulating an audience and carrying an audience. Mm-hmm. And that's really the touchstone for us. That's the rule. And you can't teach it. You can only know it when you hear it, when you feel it. So with the underwater sequence, I said to Max and Alfie, when I hear orchestra juxtaposed against someone underwater, somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, where's the orchestra?
Yes.
Why can I hear a
Do you
violin
not sound a bit
underwater?
muffled? You know, that kind of...
Yes. So I said, so there was an instrument called the space bass, which I had seen. If you go and look it up on YouTube,
Wow.
it's this incredible. It's an instrument. I wish I could remember the name of the woman who invented it. I hope you'll look her up
I will.
and give her credit. It's this sheet of metal with rebar pulls, and she uses mallets, and she'll use a bow.
Oh, wow.
And it's part percussion, part bow instrument, and I said to Max and Alfie, go and look at this instrument, because what I want the score to be is I want this sequence to be the voice of the submarine itself. The submarine is a character in the sequence, and the ambience of the underwater. And I was equally a pain in the ass to my sound team, that there were times I would hear sounds underwater and say, I don't feel I'm underwater when I'm hearing this sound.
Yeah.
I feel as though I'm not immersed in it. I'm watching a person immersed. I'm not immersed with him. So the sound design and the music all had to contribute to a sense of immersion, that there was no roadmap, there was no rule book for it. And the one exception to that is the Russian throat singers that you're hearing, those low baritone, that ghostly sort of feeling to it. That was very much because the submarine was Russian, and where we are in the world is very close to Russia. And I kept encouraging Max and Alfie. I didn't suggest the throat singers. I just said, look to the culture, look to the Russians, and see what you find there. And they found these throat singers, and they also found in other elements of the score, the use of the balalaika. It's a very distinctly Russian instrument. That's what lent itself to that. And in the aerial sequence, I was very nervous that the engines in the biplanes would become very monotonous very, very quickly, and would wear you out. And we knew it was a long sequence. Even the shortest version of this sequence is quite big. There was a much longer version of both of these sequences. And there was a lot of killing your darlings and cutting things out. I sat down with Max and Alfie and Cecile, and I showed them a scene from William Wyler's The Best Years of Our Lives. I don't know how familiar with the film you are.
I'm not, but yeah.
There's a scene towards the end of The Best Years of Our Lives, and then the film is about 3 veterans who returned from World War II and how they're trying to reintegrate into their lives. And Dana Andrews plays one of the 3 soldiers, and he was a bombardier during the war. And he's before they had a name for PTSD, that's what this movie is really about. And you're talking about a movie that's, I think, came out in 1946. The war was fresh in people's minds. And it's an extraordinary piece of filmmaking. It's a massive influence on Steven Spielberg. It's his favorite film. It's the film he shows to everybody before he makes every movie. And you feel it. There are shots in the movie where you go, well, I see where he got it now. And you'll see Wyler's influence. People talk about Ford and Lean, their influences on Spielberg. Wyler is a massive influence on Spielberg, and as such is a massive influence on every filmmaker that exists today, whether they know it or not. This is the movie. And in this scene, Dana Andrews, who's lost his 3rd job and is struggling to find his place in the world, I get quite emotional just telling the story. He finds himself in an airplane graveyard, and all these planes are being scrapped, and it's this beautiful visual metaphor for the man himself. And he climbs into this B-17. The engines have been torn off, and the plane is filled with dust, and the canopy is dusted over, and it's opaque. And using only score and camera, Wyler puts you inside Dana Andrews' mind. And using this camera move, he resurrects this dead aircraft And using music, you hear the engines, and you're seeing Dana Andrews experiencing something that the audience never can. And it's the difference between Wyler and a contemporary filmmaker who would have flashed back and shot a sequence and shown you inside the B-17. And instead, he does it all with music. So I sat down with Max and Alfie and Cecile, and I said, I want to show you a film from another time, and I want to show you an art that is dying, which is thematic, melodic, orchestral score. Music now is becoming more and more atmospheric, more tonal, more mood, and much more awash that covers the entire film.
Yeah.
The idea of what John Williams does so well, where he is actually a storyteller unto himself. I said, this is where it was born. This and the music of Prokofiev and the music of Respighi and the kind of stories they don't tell anymore. And most importantly, look at the way that the composer in this film is creating the sound of an airplane. And what I want you to do is find a way to create the voice of this plane so that the sound department has some relief.
Yeah.
Because the engines themselves are going to become monotonous over time. And you need to be able to take the ball from them so that the audience is never hearing the same thing over and over again. And if you go back and watch the film, you'll hear these low trombones roaring through moments in that sequence. And also, you'll notice that there are moments when there's no choice but to cut to a wide shot. Well, when Ethan is on the wing, I have wind, I have engines, and I have different perspectives that are constantly shifting. But when you cut to a wide shot, the airplane engine suddenly, it just loses, you're gone, you're taken out of it.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the sequence, you see how it's quite literally the sound team and the music team are batting it back and forth to one another. It's an extraordinary piece of work, and it's something that only came together in the last week. It really didn't fully find its footing until days before we locked picture in the mix. And it's an extraordinary, extraordinary amount of work from both departments because they're working separate from one another. And it was only as they started to merge that they realized, okay, the music team would go back and record new pieces to integrate, and the sound team would have to re-record in order to back off and make way for the music, and other times they'd have to charge in and take over. It is an absolute masterclass in the mixing of music and sound so that the two were never stepping on one another, but also never letting each other down.
Wow. I know what I'm going to watch straight after our chat today.
Yeah, you especially now knowing the secret recipe
when
you're listening. Yeah, it's really, really something. It's all calculated. And what I especially love is there's that moment when Ethan, when the tables turn.
Yeah.
And the music kicks in.
Yeah.
And how it kicks in is the music takes over, and the score you're hearing there could have been in any Hitchcock film. It is Max and Alfie and Cecile are absolutely at the peak of their powers, and they're doing something I never expected, and is so old school. It's as good as anything I've heard Bernard Herrmann do. Anything as good as Elmer Bernstein has done. And then where they bring the mission theme into it. So the mission theme, this is important for us to talk about. It's a very difficult theme to bring into the movie, and we struggle with it constantly because it's very light and very triumphant.
Yeah.
So as soon as you start hearing the mission music, the movie's over.
It tells you, doesn't it?
It tells you. It's kind of like he wins, and figuring out when that could be in there, or modulating it so that you're hearing the mission theme, but it doesn't let you off the hook, is an art form in and of itself, and one where I would and if you watch Fallout, when Ethan has his Ethan Hunt moment, we don't go to the mission theme, we go to the plot theme. Dun, 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 dun,
well, there's two, isn't there? Almost.
Yes, there are two themes. Well, we lean very heavily on plot because the plot theme because the plot theme doesn't let you off the hook the way the mission theme does.
Yeah.
And this time we just said, okay, and because Eddie is always pushing the mission theme, we said, okay, we're not going to lean on that. How are you going to make the mission theme work without taking our foot off the gas? And Max and Alfie and Cecile figured it out. They did an amazing job.
I can't wait to just sit with the music for a while. You know, when the score's released, to just sit and listen to the music.
Well, also there will be the score-only version of the movie. When you watch home media, if you go back and watch Dead Reckoning and Fallout,
Yeah.
in the special features, you can watch the movie with just the score. We take out all
Silent
the
movie?
Oh yeah. You
didn't
can
know
watch
that.
it silent. Oh yeah, of course. Oh, it's there for you. So you can watch Fallout. You can watch. I wish I'd done it with Dead Reckoning. I mean with Rogue Nation. But yes, you can watch Fallout and Dead Reckoning, and now you'll be able to watch Final Reckoning. It's our version of the black and white. We do the silent movie, and you can just watch it with score, and which I love because, for example, when you watch Fallout, the mission, Ethan getting the mission at the
Yeah.
beginning of the movie, it's much more effective without all the exposition in it. And what it exposes when you're watching it, when you watch it with just music and no dialogue, is where the editing is actually, the natural cuts are being delayed because of the information you have to be putting in there. And it was a lesson for me after the fact, to where I now go back, and after we've put the score in, I watch the scene without the dialogue
Yeah.
to know, I suddenly am starting to see, oh, there are false beats in here that are governed by the fact that someone hasn't finished saying something yet, and it causes me to go in and re-edit the dialogue.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing, considering that whole idea of not using temp. So there's no music on it for
Yeah.
that. And then
There's no dialogue. And
That's
you
amazing.
suddenly realize,
Yeah.
oh, the dialogue's actually holding back the editing. And that's how granular we get. That's how obsessive
Wow.
we become.
Is music around when the cameras aren't rolling? You know, in terms of like, does music play a part in terms of, I don't know, if you and Tom are writing or you're kind of,
Normally, no. Underwater, yes.
oh,
What happened was I have hearing aids. I have
Yeah.
profound hearing loss. I have a congenital condition, and I've been slowly losing my hearing, and I can hear perfectly fine with my hearing aids in.
yeah.
But if my hearing aids are not correctly programmed, I can't hear things like very, very, very low bass.
Yeah.
Which is why my mixes are the way they are. If I don't feel it in my ass, it's not big enough. And we joke on the mixing stage that all of my mixes are done by Braille. That if I don't feel it, it's not working. And I drive them crazy. I'm like, nope, not feel. And so when you watch The Submarine in a proper Dolby Atmos theater, if you go and have kidney stones, you will pass them after the. We'll pulverize them for you.
Thank you.
And when I ended up, I've done several underwater sequences. Underwater photography is very difficult, very time-consuming, very frustrating process.
Yeah.
Because you're above water, the actors in the camera team are in the water, and for safety's sake, I have to speak through an underwater AD who's there with a microphone above water, speaking to everybody on a speaker system underwater. It was decided very early on that I was going to get in the tank. And one of our concerns was, well, what's going to happen when I
With your hearing.
take out my hearing aids? I can't wear them underwater.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out the damage to my hearing is entirely in my middle ear, not in my inner ear. My cochlea is actually functioning 100%. When I got in the water, I could hear perfectly.
Perfect.
And it was quite
Wow,
liberating.
that must have felt really...
Oh, it was a miracle. It was the first time I'd heard unaided in close to 20 years. Wow. So of course, the first thing I did is I asked the underwater AD, start playing music. So in between, and there was a lot of rehearsal time and rigging time underwater. I would be underwater for 4 hours a day. And the limitations in the UK, you couldn't be under more than 4 hours a day. I would have been under for longer. I would have stayed under there indefinitely. Well, as a result, whenever we were in the tank, we would have music playing because it was the first time I was hearing music without some kind of mechanical assistance for years. And that affected our it affected the mood underwater.
Yeah.
And there were days and I would let Mary Boulding, our first AD, the extraordinary Mary Boulding, she would pick music. Some days I would pick music. At Christmas time, there was a Christmas list, and scuba diving while listening to Fairy Tale of New York was just this completely amazing, and it's an experience I'll never forget. It was really something. But other than that, no, we never have time
Yeah.
for music on set. There's really no time for frivolity and for kidding around.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere on the set is actually quite serious, only because we are always crushed for time.
Yeah. We've run out of time. I could chat to you for hours about this.
Part 2.
Part 2, please. Yeah. And congratulations on this. And I very much look forward to what's next as well. Whatever
As
that
am
may
I.
be.
I have no idea what it is, but I'm looking
A
forward to it.
holiday.
Yeah, a nap.